Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Strawberry Hill Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Simmons. And like every episode, we're at the Shop Cigar Lounge. And like I always say, if you have not been here, come down and check us out. 407 North 6th Street, right in the heart of Strawberry Hill. Got live jazz music every weekend, so on and so on. But yeah, enough about me. Before we get started, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Make sure you follow us on the platforms. Michael and Mike on Facebook. Strawberry Hill Podcast on Instagram, and then we're on YouTube. That's where we post everything. And so today, I have Miss Amy Gibbs from Third Space Coffee. And like I will say throughout this whole episode, if you have not been there, you have to go. It is, I don't even drink coffee, and I love going there. And it is in Bonner Springs, right? Mm-hmm. And it is awesome. I'm just going to keep going with this because I love that space. It's like if this place was a coffee shop. That's kind of how I tell people. And if you go there, get the train wreck. That's what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. It's my favorite thing. I get it every single time. Oh, it's amazing. Okay. Anyway, so how have you been?
Doing all right, you know.
Uh-huh.
It's fall. It's the busy season for us.
Yeah, I bet you it would be. Yeah. Like I guess the busy season would be when it starts getting cooler out.
Actually, summer is really our busiest season, but fall has a lot more events. So we're just picking up with a lot of, just the fall fun stuff, a lot of specials that are, pumpkin related, of course. And so
you got that, like you're going to be like everybody else and get a pumpkin spice coffee.
We do have a pumpkin spice latte. We make our own pumpkin spice simple syrup.
Oh, even better.
From scratch.
Yeah.
Not
like everybody else.
Not like everybody else. And of course we have pumpkin crumb muffins, pumpkin scones, and we make a pumpkin bisque that I know I'm biased, but it's fantastic. So if you're a bisque kind of a person, I highly recommend it. So
yeah, and you guys got like really, really good food there too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So how long have you had Third Space for?
7.5 years. We opened
7.5 years.
Yep. April of 2017 when we opened.
Man.
So, yeah.
So why coffee?
It really was more just by default when I started working. My first job was as a barista at a coffee shop out in California. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't intentional. It was just the job that was available. And I loved the coffee industry and I loved the contact with the customers, just the daily interaction. Mm-hmm. So I kind of stuck with it. And, once you're usually with your first job, at least for me, anywhere you go from there, that's the kind of job you seek out because that's what you know. So I felt comfortable with that. So I've been in coffee for about 30 years now.
Really? Mm-hmm. So are you originally from California?
I'm not. I actually was born and raised in South America, in Ecuador.
What? Mm-hmm. I didn't know this about you.
Oh, you didn't? Oh.
No.
So yeah, my parents were missionaries there. They went down there in 1969. And so I was born down there. We moved back to the States when I was 17.
So you lived down there for 17 years? Mm-hmm. What? Yeah. What was it like growing up down there?
It was wonderful, partly because the country itself was a very safe country at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, not quite so much, but it's a beautiful country. It's a really well-kept secret. It's got mountains, jungle, ocean. The Galapagos Islands are 600 miles off the coast. So it's... And the people are just hospitable and warm and authentic, of course. And it's hard to say what was it like growing up there because I don't have anything to compare it to. Yeah, it'd be like me saying, so what was it like growing up in, Overland Park or Shawnee? Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know. It was just, I just grew up there. So, but looking back, I can see, my parents had this wonderful heart for the country and the people there. So, well, we did work with a lot of expats there. My parents really made a concerted...
What's expat?
Oh, an expat, I'm sorry, is Americans that are living in another country.
Gotcha.
Expatriates, sorry. So there's a whole community. And anywhere you live, there's going to be an expat community. And you can kind of live in that bubble, but that kind of defeats the purpose of living in another country. So while my parents worked there, my dad was a school teacher and my mom was a musician. She played in the National Symphony Orchestra. And then we also worked with a radio station. So my mom did a lot with programming and music stuff. So, but when they weren't doing their day jobs, we were traveling. We lived outside of the city. All of our neighbors and friends were people from both Ecuador and other countries, actually, especially with my mom being in the symphony. So many of her friends were from all over the world. So it was a really interesting growing up experience. And my dad, he was former Marine. So when we would camp, it was like legit camping. You know, it wasn't like a KOA. It was, you know, we had tarps hooked up to our cars on the beach, and like it was a really raw experience where they just really tapped into the opportunities that we had there to travel and experience the country. So it was amazing.
So is that where you like got into the coffee? Like,
no,
first?
Well, yes, but not because of where I was. It was more because my dad was Swedish. And so coffee is a huge part of the Swedish culture. And so I grew up sitting on his lap, drinking out of his cup when I was like 2-3 years old. So that was my first experience with coffee. And the coffee we drank wasn't even from Ecuador. It was from Colombia.
Of
and
course.
It was called Sello Dorado. I think you can still get it in these vacuum packed bricks. And it was so good. And so a lot of my attachment to coffee is very sentimental, you know, sitting on my dad's lap and in the mornings and drinking coffee.
So do you get to go back ever?
I've been back a few times. We went back in 2016 for Christmas and New Year's. And anybody that's lived in Latin America for any length of time, or my fellow Latin Americans, would understand New Year's is a huge deal. And so we used to go every year to the same hotel down on the coast. And New Year's Eve is just like this huge party. It lasts all night long. There's tons of fireworks, and I don't mean like legal fireworks. They have all these paper mache effigies that they've made. It's cartoon characters and politicians and anything that's gone on that year. They make these several months before, and then people buy them and they have them by their house or their business. And then at midnight, they stack them in the middle of the street and they burn them. And it's called the burning of the old man, because you're burning the old year and ushering in the new one. But these effigies are also stuffed with fireworks.
Oh, man.
So, you know, anything from Roman candles to M80s to, you know, .46 of dynamite. I mean, it's the whole 9 yards. So we went down for that as a family. And it was my parents, my 2 brothers and their families, and then my husband and my kids and I. And we all spent 3 weeks down there. So that was the last time I was there.
So do you still like have friends and family down there?
I have friends down there. All my family's here now in the States. So, but yeah, we have friends down there.
And so what's the national language down there? Is it Spanish? So do you speak Spanish?
I do.
Like fluent?
Yes.
What? That's just, I'm learning so much about you. Yeah, I didn't know that. So do you ever like get to use it up here? Does it like?
I do. Occasionally I have customers come in, but most of the time it's when I'm out and about in the city. But so when I was living in California, I worked as a Spanish interpreter and a liaison in the emergency room of our county hospital. So most of my experience is doing medical interpreting. That's where, and then I did here at KU in ophthalmology. I did interpreting for a while there too.
There's just so much about you I'm learning. Like I've known you for a little bit of time, and I'm like, oh wow, what this and that. So are you like ever out and about and like someone speaks Spanish and you're just like, I'm sure they don't think I know it, but I know what they're talking about
all the time. It's great. You know, you go to the taco truck and you're in line and people are talking, and sometimes they'll talk about you, and it's not bad. It's not, you know, I mean, we do that too, right? We think people don't know what we're talking about. And then I get up to the thing and I order in Spanish, and you know, this look of terror
like,
just
oh,
like
no.
comes across people's faces.
She
like
knows what we said.
But yeah,
so why did you? So you got back from Ecuador, and then did you go to California right away?
Yes, yeah. All of my extended family is there. I was there for a little bit, did junior college, and then I ended up going to Bible school in Sweden for a year.
So you're kind of like a well-traveled lady here.
I enjoy traveling.
Yeah.
Once you've traveled, it's in your blood, and it doesn't really go away. So, and then I came back and I went to school in Spokane, Washington for a year, and then I went to school in Chicago, which is where I finally got my degree. And that's where I met my husband. He was from North Kansas City, so we were both at school in downtown Chicago. And yeah, so then we graduated. We weren't dating at the time. We didn't actually marry until about 2 years after we got out of college. But then we moved to California and started our family there. And then we moved to Germany for a year. And then we moved back here to Kansas City.
So you went to Germany too? Mm-hmm. Why did you go to Germany?
We were actually missionaries there. And we were living at a school that was for missionary kids. It was in the Black Forest down in the southwesternmost corner, right by France and Switzerland. And the kids that were attending this school, their parents were missionaries all over like Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, the Middle East. And they were their parents were in areas where they didn't have a lot of educational options. So they sent them to this boarding school, which, I know is a controversial concept. And I think they're kind of doing away with it now. I don't think it's a real healthy thing. And I didn't think it was healthy then, but I also knew that kids that are in that setting need people to spend time and invest in them and be a constant in their lives since their parents aren't able to. Yeah. So we did that for a year. And our middle son was born there. And then we moved back here to Kansas City and we've been here ever since.
So do you speak German too?
Oh, very, very little. Very enough to say that I don't speak German or that it's really bad German.
So you said like something about like these missionary trips. So I'm dumb as a box of rocks. What exactly does a missionary like trip look like? Like what are your plans when you go to like different countries?
It depends on, are you going just by yourself? I think a lot of people go and kind of just do their own thing and they just build relationships and try to help people out and, come alongside them in some way, provides resources, usually a spiritual resource. But we were always with like an organization that was already there and already had something going on that you just get plugged in and can participate in. So like when my parents were in Ecuador, there was a hospital there and a radio station that were already up and functioning, and they just had jobs within those that they would do. And then like when my husband Billy and I were in Germany, our missionary job was spending time with these boys, just helping them live life, like, treating them like kids, really, taking them to school, making their lunches, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it is really practical. And I know that people would probably define the missionary experience a lot of different ways. And along with the spiritual aspect, you do really want there to be some very practical outworking, which I think is a scriptural thing. If you look at the person of Jesus and how he functioned, just historically, he engaged people in a really meaningful way that was relevant. It wasn't just this religious thing. It was, he wanted to heal them. He wanted to come alongside them in friendship and break down the social barriers that were there. And so, yeah.
So do you get paid to go over there, or is it just kind of like you go on your own dime?
Missionaries have to raise support, which means you go to your church, you say, hey, we're going with this organization. Would you support us, monthly with, whatever amount? And you have to go and raise support. Sometimes you get the support from individuals, or sometimes you get it from churches or other organizations. And so they contribute, it's like this, it's crowdfunding really is what it is. And then, you get like a monthly allowance to live on. And, in a lot of ways it's hard because you're not working for your money. And people are trusting that you are doing what you said you were going to do down there. And it really makes you accountable to these people that are giving you money, sometimes sacrificially on their part. Yeah. You're really accountable to behave, in a way that is consistent with what you're claiming to be doing and what your life is about. So
what's been your favorite place? It didn't have to be like a missionary trip, but what's been your favorite place that you've been? Because you've been all over.
I think that's a really hard question because there's things about every place you've been that resonate with you. Ecuador feels like home in so many ways. And
it's where you grew up. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful, beautiful country. And, but Sweden was a gorgeous country too. I think it was probably one of those beautiful countries all year round. And we were in the southern area of Sweden. And so I think there's probably aspects of every place I've been that I can say this was my favorite. You know, when we were living in Germany, I traveled to Morocco with some friends, and, you know, being in Marrakesh for the day was a highlight. And then being in Spain, you know, when we were flying into Spain.
Spain is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I think, you know, there's all these different elements. You can say, oh, well, the people here were fantastic. I made this really great connection, or I went to this amazing coffee shop in downtown Malaga, or, you know, so it's really hard to say, well, this was my favorite spot, you know, I mean, but honestly, like Kansas City, and this isn't just to like plug Kansas City because I live here now, but honestly, like no matter where I travel to now, I love coming home to Kansas City.
So what's on your bucket list, like, to go?
I would love to go to, oh my gosh, there's so many places. I'd love to go to the Middle East. I'm hoping to get a chance to go to Nepal and Sri Lanka. Those are the places I haven't been.
That's cool.
So,
I'm sure you'll get there.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, sorry, we got like off topic. I was like all entertained. I'm like, she's been everywhere.
I warned you that I get off topic easily.
Right.
Sorry.
So how did you said like you got into coffee, but like what made you want to open up a coffee shop though?
I didn't want to open a business. It was one of those things where my husband and I were living here. We had never intended to plant here in Kansas City. We kind of thought it was a layover to somewhere else in the world that we were going to live. My degree
said he was from Kansas City.
He was
right?
from Kansas City. He was North Kansas City up by Zona Rosa. And his degree was in theology, but he was a software developer. And my degree was in international studies. And our intent had always been to end up living overseas in some capacity. And so we ended up back here after Germany thinking this is temporary, you know, but, you know, 6 years later, you start to go, maybe this isn't the layover. Maybe this is the destination, you know, and then it's like, well, what are we doing? We need to like invest in where we are. And at the time we had 3 young kids. So I was a stay-at-home mom, but then I was working part-time here and there. And I had been managing a coffee house down on Independence Avenue called Elias. And they're a fantastic resource in the community. I cannot speak highly enough about what they've done down there. And so I had been managing down there. I managed there for about 5 years. And then we realized as our kids were getting older that we needed to pick which community we were going to invest in because I couldn't split my time between Bonner Springs and Northeast KC, which I love. So
you were already living in Bonner Springs.
So we were living in Bonner Springs at the time. And so after a lot of conversation, we decided that we would find a way to use my experience in coffee in Bonner Springs. And of course, you know, it made sense to consider the idea of opening a shop. But I'm not a business person and I'm not an entrepreneur and I hate numbers. I just really love people and creating an environment for people. Right. You know, but a lot of our friends were like, man, you know, Amy, you should open a coffee shop. You've got all this experience. And I'm like, yeah, no, crazy people open businesses. I have no interest in that, you know, but then it just kind of became clear that like, if we really wanted to invest in our community, in a relevant way, and in a long-term way, a coffee shop seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
Because you have that everyday interaction. And like I said, I'd been in the industry. So while I'd never opened one before, I had a lot of just barista experience and then management experience. And so we opened the shop and my husband was obviously instrumental in helping me get the back end stuff all sorted out, writing the business plan, understanding numbers better. And that was really, he loved that kind of thing. He was really good at it. So he's the one that had made all the connections with the accountants and taking care of all that stuff. And then he would try to educate me, you know, as we went along. And it was a great partnership. And, you know, Bonner Springs, I think, was just needing a place for community to happen.
Yeah.
Because they have some spots that have been there for a long time. You know, Kobe's Biker Bar is great, but it's not really a family environment. You know, so you're kind of excluding people when you have such a niche target group.
Yeah.
But a coffee shop really casts the widest net in terms of age, economic strata, culture, anything. It's something that I think is relevant to everybody, and everybody has access to coffee. It's a cheaper commodity. It's not like going out to dinner all the time. If you can just get a cup of coffee or a pastry, you know, that's an affordable thing. And actually, on the business side of it, in the coffee industry, it's one of the only industries that will continue to grow even during like a recession or a global pandemic. So statistically, it has a really good business trajectory that way. So we jumped in. And
what year was this? 2016,
this
2017?
was 2017 when we opened. So, yeah.
You just jumped right in, just like, let's do it.
Yeah, and we had some wonderful friends that ended up being able to acquire this fantastic building so that they could rent to us, which was...
you guys are in a perfect spot.
Yeah, it was ideal. And we'd actually turned down a couple other spots that could have worked. But it was like, when this one came along, it was like, man, this is the spot.
Because you're like right in the heart of downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was something we were really sure about was if we're going to do this, it has to be downtown. It can't just be, you know, and it was interesting because a lot of business people were like, man, you know, a lot of coffee shops have come and gone in Bonner. Are you sure this is a wise idea? Are you sure you don't want to put it up by I-70 where you can have a drive-through? And I was like, no, because a drive-through defeats the purpose of what we're doing. You know, we want people to have to come in and spend some time there because it's about community, which I'll explain. The name Third Space.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to
is
next.
The sociological concept that your first space is your home, your second space is your work, and your third space is where you do community. And so we went with that because we felt like it was the perfect definition of what we wanted to accomplish in our community. So anyway.
So, like, I guess... You mentioned something about the pandemic or global pandemic, like how, you know, coffee shops kind of do better and stuff like that. So tell me about, because you guys, that was what, your third year open?
Yeah, it was our third year. Yeah, that was, it was, we already were just new to business. So to throw COVID in there was just a huge challenge, but not insurmountable. And I think part of that was because coffee, I think, we recognized early on one of those things that, you know, while everything else is shut down, people still need coffee. They still need an excuse to get out. And I think any other food business felt the same way. Like this is a necessity, you know? So we never shut down. We were never closed. We had to do carry
6
out.
feet and all that other stuff.
Yeah, we had to, and for a while, you know, we couldn't have anybody in the store. So we just did drop off curbside pickup and things like that. And we did a little bit of delivery for a while too. But quite honestly, that wasn't even the biggest challenge during that season, because that was the summer of 2020 when it all, like, the mask mandates and all that kind of stuff.
Like what, March 2020?
Spring and summer.
Spring to summer.
So we had been, you know, trying to navigate all of that. And I'm sure you were probably going to get to this, but in November of 2020, my husband was killed in a motorcycle accident. So on top of the challenge of COVID, my kids and I entered into a season of just immense grief and loss. And so the business kind of went to the back burner for me. I wasn't real involved with the shop for probably a good year and a half after that. But I had this amazing manager and assistant manager and young women that they themselves have had no experience in food or management. This was their first rodeo, and so to speak. And they just did an amazing job of not just sustaining the business, but growing it.
Yeah.
They kept the operations going. They continued to build relationships with the community. They kept the staff in line. They created more streams of revenue. I mean, Third Space would not be there without them. And they were a huge, for lack of a better word, blessing to us at a time when we wouldn't have survived without them. So, when people say, oh, you guys survived, COVID and, losing your husband. And I'm like, that has less to do with me and my fortitude than it does the amazing people that were brought into our lives ahead of time. We had no idea, what they were going to have the capacity for. And they just executed in a major time of crisis in a fantastic way. And so I'm so thankful and humble. I'm really humbled by what they did for us. Yeah,
I'm sure the sense of I with everyone that kind of just stepped in when you had to step out. Yeah, that'd have been huge.
And smaller communities, I think they're kind of known for, either they love you or they hate you, like little small town stuff. They are fiercely loyal, and that loyalty really came through on our behalf. When that happened, and they rallied around us. And honestly, like our community and those managers, they are the reason we're still around.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of stuck with it and kept with it. Cause that takes a lot just to kind of go back. I mean, you guys started together and then you lose them. And then now everybody's just like, is this going to stay open? Like what's going to happen? So I think those first, not even just few months, like even a year, you're just thinking, I don't even know how to do life right now. I'm just trying to survive and I'm trying to make sure my kids are okay, and, we had actually just moved. We had sold our house just the day before his accident. So we had just moved and we stayed in Bonner, but we moved, to where the kids were going to be a different school district. And so there was a lot going on. But, in all of that, I never felt like, oh, well, now I'm just going to close the shop. Yeah. Because, while he and I had this dream together, and I won't even say a dream because it wasn't like I said, it wasn't like this lifelong dream we had, but we felt really compelled that this is what we were supposed to be doing. And, losing him didn't change that. For me, I still felt really strongly that, he may not be here, but I'm not released from this vision yet. And I'm still not. And I've been given all the resources that I need to keep it going for right now. And I think it's wise stewardship to take advantage of those things. And I don't feel like it's time to step out of that picture just yet. And, major life crisis can be deceptive. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, that's it. Like I can't, I'm allowed to just not do life anymore. Yeah. And in my case, people are understandable that like when something like that happens, like a huge major life crisis, like people they're kind of like, you're going to hit rock bottom and they're kind of like, okay, but then it's like up to you to get yourself out of that. Cause you can't stay there forever.
Right.
Yeah, because people are like, okay, like they'll accept you doing it, but it's like you got to get yourself kind of out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you have to be intentional, and honestly, coming from a place of faith, I grew up as a missionary kid. Billy and I had gone overseas as missionaries. You make a lot of claims when you're a person of faith, and when you're given the opportunity to actually have to step out in it and live it. Not that you don't do that in a small way all the time, but this was one of those like, okay, you say you understand these things intellectually. Are you going to move into a place of experiencing this faith now? And so you do come to a place where you're like, am I going to really live what I say I believe? Because if I'm not, then it's not real. Yeah. So in that sense, you do have to choose. You have a choice. Everybody has a choice. the choice for me was I absolutely have to keep going with this. And I know that if Billy had anything to say about it, he'd be like, absolutely. Like this was never contingent on both of us being here the whole time. This was something that God was really clear with both of us. This is something I want for you guys to do. And whatever the case is, I'm going to give you the resources to get it done through other people and a lot of circumstances. And he's made that clear. So
yeah, kudos to you. Cause it's like you go through that and then now you're single mom, 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
And then you're a business owner. It's just like, all right, like you got to provide and you got to not provide for just your kids, like people that work for you. You got to make sure the place is open, and then you got a business to run. You got to take care of your kids. You got to take care of yourself. Like it's a lot. And like, I know it's very terrifying. And I know people don't really understand like what you probably had to go through to keep going and keep moving. Like you don't really, like you have time to grieve, but it's like, you got to also do all that to provide too. Like you can't just sit in that, we like to call it in the, law enforcement world, sit in the shit. You can't sit in the shit forever.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't. You really can't. And you do have those times, it wouldn't be unlikely that I'll go sit in my car after this and cry a little bit, but that's how it is. Like, you know what? I'm okay in this moment and I'm going to do the best that I can with this moment. I'll worry about 5 minutes from now. But right now I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm going to, what is it, that Frozen song, like do the next right thing. Not to go to Disney for life input, but they're not wrong. And it's like, and I know in law enforcement too, there's so much trauma and crisis that's ongoing. It's not like one incident, like you guys.
Yeah. Law enforcement's different. One of the reasons why I got out, it's like, you're not really like, they don't really teach you how to deal with trauma the way you deal with trauma in law enforcement. Cause it's like, not like you go to a call and it's a horrible call. It's a car wreck or suicide or something. Go to it and they're like, all right, you got to do the motions, go through the process. And then your next call would be like, hey, some lady needs help out of her house or something. And you're just supposed to just like transition. Yeah. And then like your next call after that could be like a kid dying and just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then your next call will be at that. Like you're just pulling somebody over because they're going 5 over and they're
being a
complete asshole to you.
To process. And it's such a huge range of emotions. And you're supposed to treat it just like a job. But anytime you're engaging with humans, it's not just a job. We are designed to relate to people. And so it's really hard not to take on some of that trauma. And, it's really true. Isn't there a book, The Body Keeps Score?
Body Keeps the Score. That's a great book. Yeah.
Right. And so you can like move on from one thing to the next for a time.
It's going to eventually catch up to you.
It's going to catch up, and it's usually going to manifest in your body. My sister-in-law is actually she's a chaplain for the police department, and so she's so conscious of that, and she really wants to, be a resource for you guys, so that it's not all on you, so that she can kind of mediate some of that. But man, you guys have a really tough job, and I don't think there's enough resources out there for you guys.
No, there's not. No.
Really. And there's a lot of, there's a stigma too about like having to process things. Like it's a weak thing when really it's just like a healthy thing.
For some reason, like men in law enforcement or in first responders, it's like, if you go see a therapist, it's just like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's like, it's just crazy. And you know what's else is a big one is black men going to see a therapist.
Really?
It's like, that is like especially in the black community, it's like if you go see someone, that's like the weakest thing you can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a shame because truthfully, that's the best stewardship of your gifting as a law enforcement person. The best thing you can do is to put yourself in a place where you are healthy enough to continue doing it well.
Yep. Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is to be a man and not be a good steward of what you have to offer by maintaining. I mean, you maintain your body. We watch what we eat. We exercise. We maintain all these other things. Like, why aren't you taking care of your spirit and your mind the same way? Like, you really have to. It doesn't make any sense to cast that stigma on that.
Yeah.
That way.
That's why I tell people all the time, it's like, I go to therapy and I'm a big proponent of it, big endorser of it. So it's like, hey, I'm a black male that said he needed help, and I go to therapy all the time. And like, I want people to not be ashamed of it. It's just such a like you're going to somebody that doesn't really know you. I mean, my therapist definitely knows me now, but it's like they're there to help you. They're not there to they're not like your friend or your family. Like, it's just a completely different person that can offer a sense of guidance that you wouldn't get from anywhere else.
That's objective.
Yes.
Because if they know you personally, it taints that. And, I'll go out on a limb and say, I think even, again, coming from a place of faith, going to a therapist, I think there's a stigma about that too, like what your faith isn't enough. And it's like, that's not really the issue here.
Yeah.
The issue is like, you want to learn how better to live out your faith in this. And you have to address some of these issues that, only a therapist can take care of. And sometimes medication, I think that can be a slippery slope and we have to be careful, but I don't think that that's off the table. And so going to a therapist, even, I go to therapy, and it's not a faith-based therapist. Yeah. It's, I just think it's such a necessary thing, and it's not, what's the right word? It's not really indicative of your weakness or my lack of faith in my case, that we need these things. I think it's just being good stewards of our bodies, mind, and spirits. So, yeah.
And then you do support groups there too.
Yeah, we do.
I've been to a couple, and like, I know that there's quite a bit that go there, which is cool about a coffee shop, because that's what happens a lot there.
Yes.
And same thing with here too. We have a lot of support groups that meet here too.
Yeah. I feel like we're actually in the same industry.
Yeah. It's just like you have better coffee than I do.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't have pipes.
Better than the Keurig.
Smokes. Yeah. No, what we offer here, the cigars and the pipes and the coffee and the pastries, those are just the medium.
Yeah.
They're not the point.
Yeah. The point is to get together and de-stress or talk to people about pretty much getting yourself mentally healthy.
Yes. Actually, it is a therapy of sorts because it's a neutral space. It's safe. And sometimes going somewhere not with the intent of going to therapy is also therapeutic because it just feels more authentic and natural. So
yeah. One of my biggest compliments I get from people that I love hearing is when people come in, and it's not even them saying something. It's just when I can see it, or when they just give a, I'm like, got them. That's exactly what I want. I want you to come in and just woosah. This place is that. And I like people that come in and they feel comfortable enough to do that. They're not having their guard up at all the time. Cause I have a lot of law enforcement, first responders, firefighters, and just people that have a high stress jobs that come in just to relax for an hour or two, because they don't really get to do that.
And you've created an environment where just the dim lighting and all of that really lends itself to escaping and kind of disappearing. Because I've done that here. Because sometimes I love Bonner, but sometimes I need to get away from Bonner, and I need to go somewhere where I can just chill. Yeah,
chill in the corner.
And I do that here. So it's been therapeutic for me, in addition to also being able to network with other business people too. And kind of get a load off. So
what got you into smoking pipes?
So my husband and I had actually started smoking pipes when we were first married. And then of course, when I found out I was pregnant with my oldest, I quit smoking, and he did too, just, for camaraderie's sake. So
he's like, if you're doing it, I guess I'll do it.
Right. So, and then about, 5-6 years ago, he picked it up again. And I still had mine. We pulled them out. They kept them in a tin, and we went down to Diebel's on the plaza and got some different tobaccos to try out. And so we started smoking again together now that the kids were older. And, so it was just something we enjoyed. And it's some people smoke for the hit, which is totally fine too, but it's kind of like coffee. It's there's a little bit of a ritual, packing it, tamping it, getting it lit, keeping it, learning how to smoke a pipe there's a learning curve there, keeping it lit.
I'm still trying. Like, I know how to do it, but God, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
You really have to be doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
you have to have some time on your hands to really relax. Cause like smoking a pipe is not like a on the go thing. And neither is a cigar, but like definitely not a pipe.
Yeah, definitely not.
If you're smoking a pipe, you better be sitting down, relaxing, and have some time on your hands. Cause it is a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, and actually that too, though, that lends itself to, you have to slow down. Mm-hmm. You have to slow down. And not to mention, it's just super classy.
It is.
Pipes are anyway.
Yeah. I know. Whenever I get dressed up on the weekends and like, I'm like, I want to feel sophisticated. I'll grab my pipe and just act like I'm, Mr. Belvedere. I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I'm like, I gotta do all this stuff first. Like,
I gotta keep it lit. Yeah. My oldest son, he smokes a pipe now too. Mm-hmm. And so that's something we get to share. That's
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So
other than coffee though, you have food at your place, and then it's phenomenal. Like, have you always been a baker?
No. I mean, I've always loved baking, but we did not have a bakery when we first opened. We did breakfast and lunch. Not a huge menu, just the basics, biscuits and gravy, the train wreck, like a breakfast burrito, or you can get it on 8-grain bread too. And then it comes with a side. And then we kind of started dabbling with some baked items because we baked all our own biscuits. And we thought, well, it wouldn't hurt to have a couple muffins. And we had tried the Sam's Club, and they're fine. But it was like, man, it'd be really nice to make something kind of signature. So then I had a fantastic girl that was a baker I've never had anyone bake like she did. She was amazing. And she started introducing things like brownies with espresso in them and some amazing cinnamon rolls. And
brownies with espresso in them.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, they're really good.
Those sound good.
Yeah, they are. So we've kind of branched out, and now we have
cinnamon
muffins
roll, by the way, is
so
good.
Oh, yeah.
I think everything I've had there is good. Sorry.
I'm glad to hear that. Yes. No, that's good. So, we put in the bakery about 4.5 years ago. So now we bake all of our own pastries. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I can't.
Thank you.
Like, I remember, what was it? About a month ago, we all came, a lot of us from the shop, and just kind of surprised you, and it was...
That was great. Yeah. That was a good day.
Yeah. You got Kango out there.
I know. Yeah. I know. He came for the cinnamon rolls.
Of course.
And I felt badly because it was a Monday, so we didn't have any cinnamon rolls. We have them on Saturday mornings. I go in at 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings to bake them, so they're fresh.
I'm sure you sell out.
We do.
Probably
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Most of the time.
All right. So before we end, we'll do 3 questions before we end. Okay. So first one, what is the best coffee, like, in your opinion? Like, if you get like a perfect day, like it's nice out, you're in Spain, and like you got a cup of coffee, what do you got?
I get the cortado. Cortado is a shot of espresso with just 2 ounces of steamed milk. It's just a 4-ounce drink. It's real small. I think people call it a Gibraltar also because it's served in a Gibraltar glass a lot of times. That's my go-to. Otherwise, it's just black coffee. I'm a straight up black coffee girl. No cream and sugar. And I like single origins because then I can really get a handle on the character of the bean and the just where it's from, all the little nuances of flavor. So that's my go-to coffee. So
this is a secondary question now, because now I'm thinking, so if a novice was to get into coffee, AKA me,
okay,
like, where would I even start?
You would have to start with the coffee with training wheels. So, right. So
not the foo-foo coffee, like,
right.
Get
you want you want flavor. You probably, depending on, I don't know, people have preferences. Some people are cold brew people, which I would highly recommend our cold brew. Honestly, it really is some of the best in the city. And I know I'm biased, but my manager,
I don't think
Ashley,
you're biased, because I think a lot of people think the same thing.
Well, yeah. And my manager, Ashley, is so specific about how we make our cold brew. She's crafted it perfectly. So that would be a good place to start. You can also add flavor to that. You can get one of our cold foam cold brews. So we have flavored cold foams you put on there. So that would be a good place to start. But our Bonner brew is kind of our signature, but that's really one of those highly altered coffee drinks where it's milk based and there's flavors in there. But that for a fall day, like right now, it's perfect. You can get it hot or iced. But yeah, a hot Bonner brew on a chilly day, like come November, that'll be.
So it's almost like cigars. It's like you got to kind of start off sweet, get your palate right, and then you can work
or wine.
your way up.
Wine's the same way. You start out with like the Moscatos, and you work your way towards.
I'm gonna get there.
ones.
I see everyone and their mom drinking coffee with cigars. I'm like,
well, if it's any consolation, my husband didn't drink coffee for a long time, and then he started drinking cappuccinos, vanilla cappuccinos. And then he eventually got to where he would drink a small cup of black coffee every day.
yeah, I'm trying to get there because I
It
know
took years.
I would like
years.
black coffee because I'm very I like my cigars strong, my bourbon strong, but I just haven't got to the coffee point yet. I have tried an espresso shot.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Well, I don't.
That's
I was
not
just
a good
like,
place to start.
because I every once in a while I'll have some kind of coffee. And I forgot who I was with, and he got one. He was like, "Do you want one?" I was like, "F it, let's do it." I was like, "This is the worst thing I've ever had." What is it called? Drip or something? Or
Well, no, drip is just like a regular drip, but just a shot of espresso.
I think it was a shot of
Just a shot,
espresso.
yeah.
It's so
you know
bitter,
what you probably
right?
want to do
Is it really
is
bitter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very well. It doesn't have to be. But I mean, it's concentrated coffee, so it's gonna be, But yeah, you don't. That's like having alcohol and having bourbon neat. Like, whoa, okay.
That's what it felt like. I was like, how do people drink this?
That's jumping in at the deep end.
This is,
What you could do is go to one of our many wonderful local roasters, Broadway, Marcel, Messenger is good. They all do tastings where you taste single origin coffee side by side, and that really helps you understand like the different flavors.
not a bad idea.
Yeah, I highly recommend doing that. And they all offer different kinds of tastings. And we've actually talked about doing that at the shop too, just as an educational thing, and it's fun.
You want to do it here?
Sure.
All right, setting it up. That sounds like a cool idea, a little coffee tasting.
Yeah, I'll bring some pastries in.
Yeah.
It's nice to pair things. It helps elevate the flavors sometimes.
Sold.
Okay, done. We'll put it on our super full
Yeah,
calendars.
I know. It's like, all right, well, we got time 2025.
Right,
Late
exactly.
2025. Yeah. So second question. So where do you see yourself like 5-10 years from now?
That's a little bit of a loaded question. My kids will be out of high school in the next 2 years. The shop is at a place where, while I'm still fine tuning a lot and course correcting, because being a business owner again is just still rough for me. I'm not good at it. I'm learning a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm trying to fix some of those right now.
You're always going to make mistakes, but it's like as long as you don't make the same mistakes.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, depending on who is watching or listening, I'm not sure I see myself as involved with Third Space as I am now. I don't see myself being hands-off entirely, but I do see myself traveling more. I've looked at some other business ideas.
Yeah.
And most of them are overseas, actually. So I'm toying with the idea of several different things right now. And honestly, because of the situation I'm in, due to obviously major life changes, losing Billy, when the kids are gone, I kind of have a blank slate.
Yeah.
And so it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of exciting. You kind of get to rewrite what you thought your future was going to look like. And that's not, it's hard, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
There's a difference. So I'm kind of excited about what I'm looking at, because I think there's a ton of options and I'm looking at them all. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And then going back to like you wanting to take a step back, which I think is a good idea, because what people keep telling me, and I need to like learn, is like, you don't need to be an employee of your own business. You need to be an owner.
Right.
And it's like, it's so hard. People say it all the time. Like, you know how hard that is? Like, you could say it all day.
Yeah, you can say it all day, but you always have both hats in your back pocket: owner, employee, owner, employee. And you can't ever put the employee hat away entirely. Like right now for me, I'm not just the owner. I'm literally there at the shop almost every day. I'm baking a lot. I'm covering shifts.
Yep.
And it's just the way it is. That is what you sign up for.
Yeah, that's just a small business owner. It's like people just got to understand that. It's
Yeah.
like eventually, if you get to that point, like, because like in 10 years, you'll probably be in a good spot. But like your first 5-10 years, it's like you're grinding just to make it.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't really have time to be like, all right, I'm just gonna take a step back and then let you guys got it.
Yeah. I think in my case, I had I wouldn't say an advantage, but the fact that I had to step out so definitively after Billy's accident, it created a situation where my staff had to step in and take the ball and run with it. And they did. But typically I don't think an owner is really allowed to step out like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, for at least 5-10 years, really. So I'm a little bit further ahead in that game, I think, than some people would be. Yeah. Just because of what happened. But I also don't want to leave them hanging because they've invested a lot and I don't want to leave them in a bad situation. So right now I'm just working on making sure things are really stable, making sure things are growing, and that I'm setting them up for success for when I step out of the picture more, that they're in a place where they understand what's going on and they already have ownership in it emotionally. So which I'm really fortunate to have.
Good. That's why I'm glad to have Dave here. Cause it's like, I feel like he takes ownership of this and like you need employees like that. Like I can step away and I know that he's going to care for it just as much as I will. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is a gift. Like you don't just hire that. That's something that, is a gift. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. So I said, we kind of looked at the future, like 5-10 years from now. What would you tell yourself going back 10 years from now? Like in the past, like if you can go back 10 years ago, like young Amy, and say, what advice would you give?
Don't be afraid. And it's hard, but it's worth it.
I like it.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for
I've
having
learned
me.
so much about you. Yeah.
I thought you knew all that, actually.
No, call you Miss Ecuador. I should put that in your locker now.
Well, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if they want that.
Before we end, make sure you tell people like about the space, where to find you.
Oh yeah. Third Space Coffee. We're at 226 Oak Street in Bonner Springs, Kansas. If you guys have been out to Sandstone, it's 6 minutes from Sandstone or Azura Amphitheater.
Sandstone.
It's Sandstone. Yeah. We're downtown Bonner. Come visit us. We have cinnamon rolls on Saturday mornings.
The best.
And we're open 6:30 to 3 every day. Mondays we are open till 9, and Fridays we're open till 7. And occasionally we have dinner specials of mac and cheese with barbacoa or walking tacos. So just we're on Instagram and Facebook. So check us out. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know what the mac and cheese. Oh my gosh.
And it's homemade and it's so good.
That's my favorite food. Mac and cheese. It's just like, you can't.
The quintessential.
I know.
Comfort food.
Now I'm getting hungry. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure you follow us on the platforms, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.